positive changes in Turkey. The new generation is more open-minded, more democratic. They use more social media and have alternative information because, as you know, Turkish government still basically, rehashes, so to speak, the same disinformation or outright lies that, genocide never happened or it was just a different, totally just a dislocation, so on. So the new generation, we're hopeful and optimistic. There are some changes, but unfortunately, at the same time, as long as the Turkish government still instills this sense of Turkish nationalism, which is based on sort of pointing out that, Atatürk Kemal was great. It was just basically the greatest thing that ever happened on planet Earth. And as long as it basically, the state controls the indoctrination of the new generation, there will be a lot of Turks who will be very nationalistic, and part of their nationalist narrative obviously includes things like fighting the Armenians, fighting the Greeks, fighting the other who are threats to Turkey. But obviously we know that that's not the historic narrative. So the more the Turkish society opens up, the more it becomes democratic. That's the way forward, and there are some positive changes in the mindset because there's more sort of like liberal-minded new generation that is more open to such things, and there are even, as you know, Turkish scholars, mainly of course outside of Turkey, but now more and more we see even scholars in Turkey who can speak about the Armenian genocide without certain fears. But of course the Turkish society is far from that positive, opening, because as you know, Hrant Dink, for example, is just the latest example. We thought that he could freely speak about such things, and it cost him his life as recently as 2007. And still this nationalist Turkish element, which is closely intertwined with the Turkish government itself, is very much working. The special organization that was set up during the Young Turk regime, it's today functioning in Turkey as their national security organization. So it's very much a lot the same organization that is responsible for the Armenian genocide. The MIT is still their main sort of like agency today. So it's still we're far from that time, but yes, there have been positive changes, and let's hope that this trend will continue.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we move on to our last question, I would like to inform everybody that if you have not had a chance to ask a question, or after having listened to others' questions and the panel's answers, if more questions arise, the panel members and the entire team will remain and be available to answer your questions and to provide information and to direct you in the right direction. Before again moving on to our last question, I would like to, before we conclude, Armina, you had your chance.
Basically, it's not a question.
Okay. One second.
I want to thank organizers and to be here to educate us more about what's going on, because we know what happened, we know genocide occurs, we know countries that recognize, but most of us are not politically involved and they don't know politically details what's going on in Congress, who is behind all of this. And we know as community that our genocide, our pain, our sorrow, we know, but us as a community within international community, not all of us are involved. So basically, thank you for that, and thanks for organizing this event.
The last question goes to so we can have it on record.
Hello, my name is Naira, and my question is in regards of Khojaly genocide. On one hand, we have tons of volumes of facts about Armenian genocide, and still we're struggling with the United States government to have Armenian genocide acknowledged on the state level. On the other hand, we have a number of states that has already acknowledged or trying to pass it, Khojaly genocide, which is apparent falsified history. So my question for you is, what is your reaction, like personal reaction or maybe your organization's reaction? Thank you.
I want to answer that, and
Go ahead.
please if you can add. Actually, well, one can say a lot about that, but obviously, Khojaly does not correspond to the definition of a genocide to begin with, because you cannot have a genocide in one village. It's just too narrow of a scope. That's point one. So when the Azeris use the term genocide for Khojaly, it's obviously already a misinterpretation of facts and incorrect, because you cannot have a genocide in just a village. But second of all, actually there's a very good, account about that by the president of Azerbaijan, who was the president during that time in 1992, Ayaz Mutalibov, who noted that his opposition that wanted him toppled specifically opened fire, and as a result, when the Armenian side was fighting, obviously they ended up being in the crossfire, and unfortunately some civilians died as a result of the Azeri fire that was opened up from their own lines. So he's very clear, and this was the president at the time that happened. So obviously we have to point out the simple truth, which is genocide by definition includes a huge scope of a vast population area, and specifically targeted for race or religion, so on and so forth. And you cannot have it on a local, very small such a scale when it's a village. That's one thing. And second of all, it's obviously the events are pretty clear, because the civilians that ended up in the crossfire, unfortunately, who died, that was as a result of that. So basically, I would just say the truth speaks for itself. We have to point out these facts, and that's how we can counter those Azeri claims.
Thank you. At this moment, I'd like to give each one of the panel members a 1-minute closing statement to wrap up the forum. And before we do so, I would like to mention that everybody, those doors are locked, so no one's going home today. We will be exiting through the exits in front of the forum and pass through the Sadrabat bookstore display, and we'll be able to exit the other way. But I would like to extend this opportunity to go from right to left in the panel, beginning with Mr. Anthony Portantino for closing remark.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you, it was appropriate to thank the organizers for making this day happen, because I think it's been a terrific experience. And as I said at the beginning, every time I go to something, I learn more, and having your explanation of what happened in the village, again, just shows the power and the importance of having events like this for all of us to continue to learn and experience and come together. So my closing is just thank you for letting me be a part of it. It's been an honor to be up here, and we'll continue to learn more about it and grow as a representative because of it. Thank you.
I'm also just very honored to be here, and the one thing that's so inspiring about your community is your passion and your dedication, and just year after year, decade after decade, the determination that you've shown in making sure that people do not forget. And I think, excuse me, I don't want to cough into my microphone. That would hurt your ears. But I think it's an inspiration to everyone outside the community that has watched the determination, and to see you all here, and just year after year, day after day, going through and making sure that no one ever forgets. It's the way it is supposed to be. But I'm very honored to be able to come and to meet you all, and thank you very much.
also would like to thank the organizers. This is a wonderful event, very important, and I hope to see more such events. This is very important because, like I said, we have to know the details. Details are important. We have to know the facts, the historical truth, and that's, the historical truth is obviously in this case on the side of the righteous, on our side, and all peoples who have suffered this horrible thing such as a genocide. And a very good point by my co-panelists was made that we have to form alliances with other peoples that also suffered. We have to point out this is a global issue, this is a human issue, this is not specifically related to Armenians, and that's the way forward. We have to form more alliances with people who suffered just like us, and who obviously understand and know much better, and that's the way forward. Thank you.
Շնորհակալություն ես, որ մասնակցելու մեզ հետ այս պատմական երեկոյին. I want to thank Homenet Mentalra chapter for putting together a very unique model for commemorating the Armenian genocide. This project has really become a benchmark on how we advocate, commemorate, remember, and reflect about the atrocities of the Armenian genocide. I want to thank our panelists, Mr. Anthony Portantino, Mrs. Barbara Mulvaney, Mr. Georg Nazarian, for their time and their insight and their passion to learn so much, to experience so much, and to be able to give so much about this topic for us to take with us into our own lives. And I think that the most important thing, how issues like these, about crimes against humanity, and about issues that affect us at home and on a global level, how it could be addressed is by continuing to educate and get the next generation involved in being informed and being much better leaders in moving a cause forward. After all, the future adults and the future advocates and our future leaders are our children.